again becoming a member of the National Assembly, and Ms. Onej Walron on becoming a member of the National Assembly. I welcome them to the Assembly and I extend prayers and good wishes to them in service to our people. Honorable members, I want to bring to your attention some common rules of parliamentary practice and parliamentary protocol. One of the best known rules of parliamentary procedure, which should be familiar to parliamentarians worldwide, is that the conduct of the Speaker cannot be criticized except by way of a substantive motion. Over the past few weeks, we have seen a number of members of the National Assembly making statements with respect to the Speaker, some reflecting on collusion with respect to lack of transparency and accountability, their election of duty, and a number of other criticisms in the media about the Speaker. The Canadian House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 2nd edition, pages 313 314 states, reflections of the character or actions of the Speaker, for example, an allegation of bias, could be taken by the House as breaches of privilege and can be punished accordingly. In 1981, a minister complained that remarks directed to Speaker Swab by Leader of the Opposition constituted an attack on the authority and impartiality of the Speaker. The following day, the minister tabled a motion in the House calling for the matter to be referred to the Standing Committee of Privileges and Elections. However, the Leader of the Opposition withdrew the remarks and the matter was not taken further. When a member is dissatisfied with the decision or action of the Speaker, he or she has a right to table a motion challenging the decision and the action of the Speaker. For example, if a member is dissatisfied with the Speaker's approval of a motion for debate in the National Assembly, he or she has the right to table a substantive motion challenging the Speaker's decision. Such a motion will receive priority over the motion challenge. I bring this to your attention and I'm reading from a document dated April 12, 2016, a document which former Speaker the Honorable Dr. Barton Scotland read to the National Assembly. Having sat in this assembly as an elected member, I saw similar announcements made by former Speaker, the Honorable Ralph Ramkaran, and former Speaker, the Honorable Raphael Trotman. I intend to uphold this convention.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers and reports, etc.
Honorable Prime Minister. Sorry, hold on 1 second, Mr. Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable members, I present to the Assembly the report of the Auditor General to the National Assembly on the public accounts of Guyana and on the accounts of ministries, departments, and regions for the fiscal year 2019. The fiscal year, ending December 31st, 2019. Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I present to the Assembly the annual report of the National Communications Network for the year 2017 and the annual report of the National Data Management Authority for the year 2017.
Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
May it please Your Honor, I rise to present to the Assembly the Civil Procedure Amendment Rules 2020, number 1 of 2020.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present to the National Assembly the following papers and reports and other documents. First, sales contract number 37000150, dated January 1st, 2015, between PDVSA Petróleo and the Guyana Energy Agency for the purpose of supplying the Cooperative Republic of Guyana with crude oil, refined petroleum products, liquefied petroleum gas up to 5,200 barrels per day on a monthly basis. Secondly, public debt annual report for the year 2018. And I might add, Mr. Speaker, that those first two items, in fact, predated the convening of the 12th Parliament and were actually submitted to the Assembly for tabling during the last Parliament and were pending. I also now table the annual report of the National Insurance Scheme for the year 2019, the annual report of the Guyana Oil Company Limited, year 2019, the fifthly Framework and Agency Agreements number 0806-2020H, dated June 8, 2020, between the Cooperative Republic of Guyana and the Islamic Development Bank for an amount of $14,630,000 United States dollars for the purpose of financing the Guyana Energy Agency Power Small Hydro Project. Sixthly, the loan contract number GY00006, dated December 3rd, 2020, between the Cooperative Republic of Guyana and the Inter-American Development Bank for an amount of $22 million United States dollars for the purpose of strengthening the country's immediate public health response to the COVID-19 emergency. Seventh, financial paper number 2 of 2019, supplementary estimates current and capital totaling $4,150,000 $4,150,243,391 for the period 13th June 2019 to 31st December 2019. Financial paper number 1 of 2020, supplementary estimates current and capital totaling $792,330,925 for the period 1st October 21st December 2020. And finally, financial paper number 2 of 2020, supplementary estimates current and capital totaling $17,403,413,490 for the period 1st January to 21st December, to 31st December 2020. And I might add, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, that I would like to name the Monday, the 28th of December, the date for consideration of the aforementioned three financial papers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister of Public Works.
Mr. Speaker, I present to this Assembly audited financial statement of the Guyana National Shipping Corporation for the year ended 31st of December 2019.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister of Housing and Water.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to present to the Assembly the audited financial statements of the Central Housing and Planning Authority for the year ended 31st December 2018.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Reports from committees. Oral questions without notice. Questions on notice.
Are for written replies. Question 7 to 10 were for oral replies with one amendment. For written replies, question 1 is in the name of the Honorable Member Mr. Jermaine Figuera, and it's for the Honorable Minister of Agriculture. That has been circulated. Questions 2 and 3 are in the name of the Honorable Member Mr. Ganesh Mahipal and are for the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. Questions 4 and 5 are in the name of the Honorable Member Ms. Annette Ferguson and are for the Honorable Minister of Housing and Water. Question number 6 is in the name of the Honorable Member Ms. Geeta Chandan Edmond and is for the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs. The answers to all of these questions have been received and have, in accordance with our standing orders, been circulated. Question number 7, the Honorable Member, Mr. Jermaine Figuera. Please ask your question. I think he's participating virtually.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can recall vividly the Minister had indicated to the House that Gaisuko, the purpose of Gaisuko is not to Hello? Sorry about that, Mr. Speaker. There was a connection flaw. Can the Minister inform the House the amount of direct financial assistance the Sucre has received from government for the last 10 years, ending August 2020? And can the Minister, that's the first question, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member Mr. Figuera, I think this oral question related to the National Insurance Scheme. Sorry, we're back to agriculture. Yes. Go ahead, Honorable Member. Just repeat the question for the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the Minister informed the House the amount of direct financial assistance Gaisuko has received from the government for the past 10 years, ending August 2020. And the Minister also stated what was the cost in US dollars for Gaisuko to produce a ton of sugar for each year from 2010 to 2020.
Honorable Member, just hold 1 second.
This connection is really bad.
Honorable Members, my apologies. Honorable Member Mr. Figueroa, that first question was for written response and that was circulated. We are dealing with the oral or the questions for oral replies. The first one in your name, Honorable Member Mr. Figueroa, is the question on NIS. I think it's directed to the Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance. Honorable Member Mr. Figueroa.
One second, Mr. Speaker, I'm having some difficulty. It must be recorded that I have requested that for the Minister of Agriculture to provide those answers orally to the House.
An Honorable Member, with respect to that particular question, it was stated for written reply. It was a lengthy question and the Speaker has the authority to convert some oral questions to written replies. And so, because of the nature of the question and the lengthiness of the response, we have tabled that for written response. The written reply to that question on Gaisuko was subsequently submitted by the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and duly circulated today in the House. We are now at the questions for oral replies. And your question there relates to the National Insurance Scheme. It's question number 7 on the order paper for today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Minister informs this House about the length of time and days it takes the National Insurance Scheme to process and make payments on medical or maternity claims from the date NIS would have received all the relevant documents from the claimant.
Could you, Honorable Member, ask all the questions and then we'll have the Honorable Minister respond?
Mr. Speaker?
Proceed, sir.
I didn't get what you said, Mr. Speaker.
The question that you tabled had many different parts. Could you put all the parts to the question?
Certainly. Additionally, the Minister for the State received letters from employers verifying commencement of deductions and claiming pay slips are no longer acceptable by NIS to aid in the verification to expedite claims payments. Can the Minister inform the House why at B above accelerated processing of maternity claims in 2020? Can the Minister inform the House the extent to which employers' method and speed of remitting employees' NIS deductions to NIS work against the employees in their moment of need? And finally, can the Minister inform this House of the number of women from January 1st to September 30th, 2020 that had to wait 2 months or more from the date of sending in all the relevant documents to NIS to receive maternity claims? Can the Minister inform this House of the number of persons from January 1st to September 30th, 2020 that had to wait 2 months or more from the date of sending in all relevant documents to NIS to receive medical claims? And the Minister further informed this House what short-term measures will be put in place for NIS to reduce the waiting time for processing medical and maternity claims. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister, Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me say at the onset that our government is deeply concerned by the length of time taken by the NIS in many instances, not in all, but in many instances, for the processing of claims and benefits due to beneficiaries and participants in the scheme. And in fact, as honorable members might know, a new board of directors was recently appointed to the scheme, and I met with them as recently as Monday of this week, and I conveyed to them this concern, and I asked the board to treat the matter of more timely processing of claims, the board and the management indeed, treat with the matter of more timely processing of claims and benefits as an issue of the greatest importance. And I wanted to say that, Speaker, as a general comment at the onset. Regarding the specific questions that were asked, question A, inquiring about the length of time it takes the scheme to process and make payments on medical and maternity claims, I would say, Mr. Speaker, that timely processing of claims is contingent on these claims being properly completed and the required documents attached. And I'm advised by the management of the scheme that a maternity claim without a query after the receipt of documents takes an average of 7 working days to process. A sickness claim without a query after the receipt of documents takes an average of 10 working days to process. Injury claims received in the system must be investigated and statements taken before processing. And as a result of that, injury claims take an average of 21 working days to process. In relation to part B of the question, which asks whether signed letters from employers verifying deductions and pay slips are no longer acceptable by the NIS to aid in verification of claims, I'm pleased, Mr. Speaker, to inform this House that the NIS in fact still accepts as documentary evidence both pay slips submitted by contributors or employees verifying the deductions were made from their salaries, and also letters from employers attesting to the period of employment and the deductions made during that period. And so the answer to the question is that it is in fact not the case that these two alternative and or complementary sources of documentation, it is not the case that they are no longer accepted by the NIS. In fact, they are still accepted by the NIS to aid in verification of claims. I should add that in some cases, investigations are also conducted by inspectors to verify deductions from employees' records or other sources to ensure and confirm the validity of the documentation and legitimacy of the documentation submitted. And once that is done, the claims are processed accordingly. Part C of the question, Mr. Speaker, appears to be premised on the assumption that these two types of documents are no longer accepted. Given that they are still accepted, I don't think that the question of how the non-acceptance of these two these two sources of documentation would accept the timely processing of claims, because in fact they are accepted. On part B of the question regarding method and speed of limiting deductions to the NIS and how alternative methods might impact the speed. As the Honourable Member clearly recognizes, cooperation from employers in submission of accurate documentation is absolutely critical in ensuring timely processing of claims. And in fact, there are three methods of remitting contributions and related documentation to the scheme. These are, first, online submission; second, electronic schedule submission. So this is submission by way of electronic media, perhaps a flash drive or electronic file; and thirdly, manual schedule submission, which is the traditional hard copy or paper printed submission. The scheme has been trying to encourage employers to move away from manual submission and towards electronic submission. But this is a work in progress, and in fact, I've urged the scheme to continue their efforts and in fact to scale up their efforts to encourage more employers to move towards electronic and ultimately to online submission, which of course eliminates the need for re-entry of the data and improves potentially the accuracy of the data. Part E of the question asks about, it's a very specific question asking about the number of women who had to wait 2 months or more during a particular period, January 1 to September 30th. And as indicated earlier, of course, the timeliness is dependent on the accuracy of information. And in answer to the question, I'm advised by the scheme that a review of the maternity claims are reflected on their database has indicated that during the period January 1 to September 30th, 2020, approximately 50 maternity claims without queries were processed outside of the 2-month period. In response to question F, similarly, a review of the medical claims database indicated that during the same period, January 1 to September 30th, 2020, approximately 45 persons for injury benefit, 1,169 persons for sickness benefit claims without queries were processed outside of the 2-month period. And finally, Mr. Speaker, in relation to measures that will be put in place by the NIS to reduce waiting time for processing medical and maternity claims, the scheme has been holding information sessions with employers and other stakeholders to inform them of the requirements, and encourage more accurate and timely submission and remission of deductions. NIS inspectors have been tasked with having the anomalies resolved by visiting employers. And of course, the scheme has also been doing ongoing training. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to emphasize that we recognize in government that claims and benefits do need to be processed in a far more timely manner by the scheme, and queries do need to be resolved more quickly by the scheme. We're not satisfied in government by the current state of affairs. We have conveyed this very clearly to the new board and the management, and we have asked them to rapidly escalate their efforts to address the question of timely grants. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. For those of us who are participating virtually, if you have to speak, we're kindly requesting that you turn on your cameras so that we will have you on the screen in the tour. The Honorable Member, Mr. Devin Sears, please ask your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. These questions were directed to the Prime Minister of Guyana. Got it. First question B. This is regards to the internet service in Guyana. Given the present COVID-19 environment, can the Minister say why the government has not operationalized Act number 18 of 2018? Is this correct? Liberalize the telecommunications sector, create competition in data services, especially the internet. Can the Minister inform this House how many data internet service providers operate of the 10 regions in Guyana as of the 30th of September 2000? By finding data, direct access, and fiber cable, which provides secondary source data in these regions. And the Minister further inform this House how many households have data, internet, landlines, and wireless services for each of the 10 regions in Guyana of the 30th of September 2020. And B, can the Minister further inform the House how many persons have data, internet via mobile phone services for each of the 10 regions in Guyana as of the 30th of September 2020? Those are the questions.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am seeking your guidance, if the Prime Minister will allow me. We passed a motion here to allow virtual attendance in Parliament. However, it's a rather strange occurrence today that members of the opposition are in a room in the building, and today this is Parliament, in which they are participating virtually. And I think this is not in keeping with the decision we took. And in fact, this is a form of boycott yet participation. And I think this House should not condone that. If they're in this building, they should be in this House to speak. If they're like Minister Pauline Sukai, who is stuck in Copenhagen and the plane can't land, that is what virtual is for. Or if someone has injured themselves or cannot access this place. It is not to be abused by the opposition. Sitting in this building and using the internet and everything in another room. Mr. Speaker, we cannot tolerate this. We will not accept this. This is beyond what is acceptable in this House. Stay home.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Comrade Speaker,
by-
I don't know if by chance the honourable member was answering the question by Member of Parliament Even Sears, or is it a political
Honorable
statement?
members,
Mr. Speaker, I am speaking a point of order and a guidance on you on a decision made by this House in September 2020.
thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I do agree with the Honorable Minister. Persons who are in the Arthur Chung Convention Center, the place that has been designated for the sittings of the National Assembly, ought to be present in the dome. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, should I go ahead with my answer?
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister. Go ahead.
I'm so guided, Mr. Speaker.
We will proceed as we are. I trust that the honorable members who are observing and participating from rooms within the Arthur Chung Convention Center will see it fit to enter the dome. After today, if you are here present, I wouldn't allow your participation for you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With regards to the first question, given the present COVID-19 environment, can the minister say why the government has not operationalized Act number 18 of 2016 to liberalize the telecommunications sector, to create competition in data services, especially the internet? Mr. Speaker, this question is overtaken by events. The Telecommunications Act number 18 of 2016 was a part of the commencement orders issued as published in the official gazette dated October the 5th, 2020, and thus has been operationalized contrary to the question asked by the honorable member. In regards to question number 2, can the minister inform this House how many data internet service providers operate in each of the 10 regions in Guyana as at 30th of September 2020, and state which provide primary source data, that is direct access and fiber cable, and which provide secondary source data in these regions. Mr. Speaker, in answering, I've been advised by my technical staff that the terms primary source data and secondary source data are neither terms of art in telecommunications, nor are they known to the Telecommunications Act 2016. They were therefore unable, that is my technical staff, they were therefore unable to understand the question at all. Notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding this, I've been advised of the following. Region 1, 3 internet service providers. Region 2, 4 internet service providers. Region 3, 20. Region 4, 26. Region 5, 6. Region 6, 5. Region 7, 3. Region 8, 2, Region 9, 4, and Region 10, 5. The third question, can the minister further inform this House how many households have data, internet, via landlines and or wireless service for each of the 10 regions in Guyana as at the 30th of September 2020? Again, Mr. Speaker, I've been advised that no information with respect to the number of households with access to the internet via landlines or wireless service by region is available. In accordance with the data which was garnered from the last quarterly report dated 30th of June 2020 and presented to the Public Utilities Commission, PUC, the total number of subscribers to GT&T's internet services as at the 30th of June 2020 stands as follows. Digital service line, that is DSL, via landline infrastructure, 50,942. And fiber to the home, known as FTTH, 25,544. In regards to the fourth question, can the Minister further inform this House how many persons have data, internet, via mobile phone service for each of the 10 regions as of the 30th of September 2020? Again, I've been advised that no information on the number of persons who receive data via their mobile phones for each of the 10 regions is available. However, the Public Utilities Commission is informed that as for their latest reports, the total number of subscribers for both GT&T and Digicel stands as follows. GT&T mobile subscriber as of the 30th of June 2020, 234,947. Digicel subscribers as at the 31st of December 2019, 392,330. Mr. Speaker, further, both companies have, by way of estimate, indicated to the Commission that each provide access to approximately 90 to 95% of the service area in Guyana. The fifth question, which is listed, but I didn't hear the Honourable Member asked it a little while ago, but it's stated here on the paper. Can the Minister further inform this House if he supports the need to reduce VAT on data given the necessity of online learning in this COVID-19 environment? Mr. Speaker, as outlined in the PBPC's manifesto, the removal of VAT on data is a commitment which was made to the people of Guyana. Unlike the many other promises which were already fulfilled within just 2 months of assuming office, our government will also deliver on this commitment. He was here in the bar. Mr. Speaker, further, should the Honourable Member have any other doubts or questions, I urge him to take a look at my statement on October the 5th, 2020 on the liberalization of the telecommunications sector for additional reference. Thank you for the opportunity to answer the questions, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister. Honourable Member Ms. Annette Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the Honourable Minister with responsibility for finance informed the National Assembly of the total sum of monies remaining in the consolidated fund by a Partnership for National Unity and Alliance for Change government as at 2nd of August 2020.
Honourable Minister, Honourable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with the responsibility for finance.
Mr. Speaker, In relation to the question posed by the honourable member regarding the total sum of monies remaining in the consolidated fund when the APNU-AFC government demitted office on the 2nd of August 2020. I regret, Mr. Speaker, to inform this honourable House that no monies were remaining in the consolidated fund as of that date. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the consolidated fund account was in overdraft in the amount of $78.7 billion. And I might add, sir, that that amount would not have reflected as at that date checks that would have been issued but that had not yet been cleared and therefore would not yet have been reflected in the bank balance. I might go further, Mr. Speaker, and say that if the overall picture of government bank accounts at the central bank were to be taken, the government's net overdraft position on that date would have been a staggering sum of 93 billion Guyana dollars. And here again, that overdraft amount would not reflect the aggregate of checks that would have been issued on all of those bank accounts, and whose clearance was still pending. For the purposes of informing the House, Mr. Speaker, I might add that this net overdraft of $93 billion as at August 2020 could be contrasted and should be contrasted with the government's net position as at April 2015 when we demitted office. And at April 2015 when we demitted office, the government was a net depositor at the central bank with an amount totaling $16 billion in the aggregate of government bank accounts in the country. This picture is replicated if one were to take account of government balances held throughout the banking system, where the overdraft is even bigger. I might add further, Mr. Speaker, that the question of the accumulation of this overdraft at the central bank was identified and flagged as an issue by a number of commentators, including international agencies, and on no less than 2 occasions, the International Monetary Fund, with its annual report on the Guyanese economy, identified the question of the accumulation of this overdraft by government of the central bank as a matter of grave concern. In order that we should have a complete picture, though, Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to emphasize that over and beyond the overdraft that was accumulated, when we assumed office on the 2nd of August 2020, we also assumed a number of other significant sources of indebtedness by government to a wide range of agencies and entities. If I may, sir, mention perhaps 1 or 2 examples, we inherited a situation where government agencies owed in excess of $12 billion to the Guyana Power and Light, which in fact has translated into grave financial distress in that company. Those numbers are not counted in the overdraft, obviously, they're not counted in the debt numbers that have been reported, but they constitute liabilities of the state. And I'm only giving a couple of examples. There are others. Mr. Speaker of the House, members of this Honorable House would be well aware of a bond that was issued by NISL for the purposes of financing in connection, what is described as financing in connection with Waisika. Although I gather there's still some clarity to be had on exactly what those funds were used for. That bond totaled 30 billion Guyana dollars, of which $17 billion was drawn down. And that bond, notwithstanding that it was a missile bond, in fact is supported by an unconditional sovereign guarantee, an unconditional government guarantee, which means essentially the government is backstopping missiles and will be required to step into missiles' shoes where missiles to be unable to repay them. So effectively this number has to be counted in total, if one were to have a comprehensive picture of the indebtedness of the state. There are multiple other examples, Mr. Speaker, but I would not wish to detain this Honourable House further on this matter. I cite these only as examples to illustrate that in addition to the overdraft that was accumulated at the central bank, the state in fact is in a much deeper indebtedness than is reflected in the overdraft at the central bank. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, question number 10 from Ms. Annette Ferguson.
Mr. Speaker.
I've asked, yes, Honorable Member, could you allow me to complete, please? Yes, I've asked the clerk to have this question resubmitted. In fact, it was a question which also demanded a written reply because the Honorable Member had asked that the questions be also answered in a written format. Also, the question requires some amount of information gathering, and the Honorable Senior Minister in the Ministry of the Presidency with responsibility for finance was just sworn in, and I'm going to ask the Honorable Member to resubmit this question. Honorable Member, Ms. Ferguson, go ahead. Your observation, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just before I continue, the remarks you made earlier, is it in relation to the National Procurement Board? You're asking for me to resubmit that question?
Yes, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the question that I asked the Honorable Minister, that was asked to the Honorable Minister not so long ago, I have a follow-up to that question. I mean, the Honorable Minister said a whole lot of things. But what is important to me is that the Honorable Minister said that when they took office on the 2nd of August 2020, there was no money in the consolidated funds. My third question to that question to the Honorable Minister, can you say to us the monies that were approved for budget 2020, where did those funds come from for us to have a whooping 300 and something billion, 329 billion Ghana dollars budget for year 2020?
Honorable Member, you're perfectly in order to ask that supplemental. Honorable Minister Dr. Singh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't want, sir, to abuse the privilege of this House by detaining the privileges of this House, by detaining members unduly in an exposition on how the public finances work. I'd be happy on another occasion, sir, to share with the honorable member, if she's not familiar with how the financing of the budget operates, I'd be very happy. I'm told that I'm being prompted by my colleagues, sir, that it appears that lessons might be required. Mr. Speaker, it is fairly well known, I believe, that the budget comprises projected revenue, projected expenditure, which is appropriated in the Appropriation Act, and projected financing, and that financing comes from multiple sources. Financing of the budget comes from, in the first instance, the revenues raised by the state during the course of the fiscal year, and obviously revenues are being raised on an ongoing basis. Taxes are being collected, fees and fines are being collected, etc. for various government services. So in the first instance, there are revenues being generated by the state on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis. Secondly, sir, there are grants and other inflows to the state. Those also contribute to the financing of the budget. Thirdly, sir, there are loans and other financing sources, including, if I might mention just a few, what we call domestic financing, which comprise, if I were to oversimplify it, essentially two main types. Drawdown of government deposits, which essentially means drawdown of government cash reserves where they exist, or accumulation of further overdrafts as was done by our predecessors in government, or raising of domestic financing, such as by the issuance of domestic instruments, such as treasury bills. And then, of course, there is what would be described as external finance, which is loans, which would typically be loans that the state would have contracted with external parties. In fact, I believe we tabled 3 or 4 such loan agreements with our development partners, and under which resources are made available for the purposes of financing both specific projects and also in some cases general budget financing fiscal purposes. I'm not sure if that was said in sufficiently clear language for the honourable member. I'd be happy to elaborate if necessary, but I guess in summary, that would be my initial response, Mr. Speaker, but I'd be happy to elaborate and explain further.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member, proceed.
Mr. Speaker. Okay. I did not want the Honorable Minister to lecture to me. The question that was asked is that all Guyanese would want to have a response to this question. Because when the PPPC came to government, they publicly stated that they want more monies in the consolidated fund. That's one. 2, we have $4.5 billion which were approved by the National Assembly for the COVID funds, amongst all the other funds. Can the Honorable Minister say where exactly these bodies, the $4.5 billion that is being distributed as COVID relief funds to the Guyanese people, where those monies came from? You cannot, if it is the consolidated fund, I don't know which other fund you're talking about, you cannot say to us that, well, look, you need more monies in the fund, but still yet we were able to find monies to distribute amongst our citizens. The citizens would like to know, as a representative of this National Assembly, The citizens would like to know where the monies come from, that's one, and how much monies were actually left in the consolidated funds by the APNU AFC government. If the Honorable Minister cannot answer directly, then I have no doubt or reasons for him providing us a response in writing.
Honorable Minister Dr. Ashley Singh.
Mr. Speaker, for a long time, I tried to understand how the public finances could have been left in such a dismal state of disarray. I now understand. I now understand. The pieces of the puzzle are finally falling into place, sir. Because such a display of lack of understanding of the way in which the public finances work could only have resulted in complete and absolute mismanagement of the public purse over the course of the last 5 years. I could not be clearer, sir. The budget, all of the expenditure provided in the budget and appropriated in the Appropriation Act is financed by the traditional sources of financing of budgets and public expenditure around the world. Firstly, and I will repeat for the purposes of clarity, firstly, government revenues are being collected every day. So government revenue is one source of finance. Secondly, government grants are being received where we have partnerships with external agencies we might be eligible for and might draw down on government grants. Thirdly, there is domestic and external borrowing. We borrow for fiscal purposes, both domestically and externally. And so all of the expenditure in the budget is financed by one or other of these sources. Or in the case of expenditure that is financed by domestic sources, these various sources of financing go into a fungible pool of resources that finance the entirety of the budget. Mr. Speaker, I must confess to you, sir, that it is beyond my humble faculties to break this down in simpler terms. I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best, sir. But it is beyond my faculties to interpret this in a manner that is simpler, that is simpler than I have already stated. In the event that the honourable member is somehow trying to claim credit for the COVID relief, because I heard reference to $4.5 billion in her question, let me say that the honourable member and her government was squatting in office from March until August and made no effort to provide COVID relief to the people of Guyana. And so if by some chance she's trying to create the impression that we inherited some pool of resources that they bequeathed to us, and that we then drew down on to distribute this COVID relief, the obvious question arises. Why is it from March to August they did absolutely nothing to bring relief to the people of this country? As the people of this country endured not only COVID relief, not only the trials of COVID, but their first display of an attempt to steal democracy in this country. The honourable member and her government were more preoccupied with holding on to power illegally than with bringing relief to people. And it is an absurdity to come to this House to try to suggest that this $4.5 billion is somehow being distributed by a pool of resources that was left so graciously by our predecessors in office. Quite the opposite, sir. When the honourable member and her government finally relinquished the reins of government which they were so desperately holding on to. We inherited a staggering overdraft in the public funds, and no amount of drama, no amount of gymnastics, no amount of manipulation and distortion will change that fact. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order. On a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, could you state what that point of order is?
Good.
If you have an additional question,
Mr. Speaker.
I will allow another
As
question.
I said before, Mr. Speaker, I do not need the Honorable Minister to lecture to me or to the Guyanese people. I ask a straightforward question. You gone to COVID, you gone to this, you gone to that. I don't need to hear that. You just came from off a flight. What do you know, Mr.
Thank you, honorable member. I think you made your statement. Thank you. I have dealt with the oral question number 10. Mr. Clerk.
Statements by ministers, including policy statements.
Speaker, as I said before,
Honorable Prime Minister.
allowing the honorable member to provide his response to me in writing.
Honorable member, we have now moved on to statement by ministers. We have heard you. There are particular standing orders with respect to repetition, and the speaker has the authority to disallow further repetition. We have heard you, and the ministers answered. You had an opportunity to make a statement. We are now at the point in the agenda which says statements by ministers, including policy statements. I now call on the Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to provide an update on government's handling of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, specifically our government's COVID CORB campaign, which has been very effective with engaging the public and raising awareness of the coronavirus throughout Guyana. Mr. Speaker, since assuming office just over 4 months ago, our government has been working assiduously to assess the situation and develop reasonable, logical ways of dealing with the threats and effects of COVID-19 while reducing the negative impact the pandemic has had on the lives of our citizens and our economy. Just over 2 months ago, our government launched Operation COVID CORB to educate the populace of the coronavirus in an effort to reduce the spread of the disease. With the involvement of members of the joint services and volunteers across our country, we took a multi-sectoral, interagency approach of collaboration to make the operation a very successful one. Education, along with enforcement, has seen improvement in the way persons responded to the coronavirus at all levels. And by that I mean from businesses and organizations right down to civilians throughout Guyana. Mr. Speaker, to date, Operation COVID CORB continues daily with conversations and advertisements in mainstream media, that is television and social media. The newspapers has even been utilized, in addition to flyers, to get the message out and keep persons engaged in the COVID-19 talk through every possible media. A hotline also exists, which persons have at their disposal to report any instances of the COVID-19 measures and regulations being disregarded, or to receive any assistance related to the coronavirus disease. Though challenges exist, just as they do in all other normal circumstances, Mr. Speaker. Our government will continue to tackle the pandemic in the best way possible from every angle to ensure the safety of our citizens first, but at the same time, taking into consideration the fact that we need to keep our economy running so that families can take care of themselves and people can get back to work in a safe environment. The private sector has been very supportive in implementing the COVID-19 measures so that businesses can continue and employees can earn income with little risk of the coronavirus being spread. They have also provided great assistance through the provision of masks for distribution. Mr. Speaker, overall, our government has continued to provide support to our citizens across all 10 administrative regions in various forms. These include food and sanitation hampers, which have been distributed to the most vulnerable communities and families in various parts of our country. The distribution of the 25,000 cash grant to every single household all across Guyana has also provided great relief to families. Mr. Speaker, our government remains committed to putting all our efforts into combating the coronavirus pandemic while reducing the negative impact that this deadly disease has on the lives of our people as well as their livelihood. Our task force, Mr. Speaker, which includes representatives from various sectors, will continue to meet weekly to make assessments and develop strategies and measures to safeguard our people and ensure they are still able to survive this challenge. We have since August the 2nd moved from approvals of repatriation flights to the recommencement of commercial flights. Reopening of business and commercial activities that were closed under the measures of a total lockdown by the previous administration. Outdoor dining, reopening of hotels, tourist resorts and lodges, and a restart of many sporting disciplines once the COVID-19 protocols are observed have since commenced, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while it is a challenge to restrict the activities of our people during this Christmas season, we wish to remind all that the COVID-19 virus will not be taking time off to observe Christmas. So again, we must continue to observe the measures throughout this season. And I repeat, wear a mask, wash and sanitize your hands frequently, watch your distance while interacting. And at this stage, I will end by saying to you all, Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. The Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, on December 18, 2020, the International Court of Justice ruled that it had jurisdiction to hear Guyana's case against Venezuela to secure the integrity of our land. This was a great victory for the rule of law internationally and for the United Nations, whose Secretary General chose the court for resolution of our case. It was and is a great moment too for Guyana, whose governments and people have been united in looking to the international justice for upholding the territorial integrity of our country. It is a testimony to what we can achieve together as a nation. As His Excellency President Dr. Irfan Ali noted on the day that the court rendered its judgment, and I quote, "This victory is testimony to what we can achieve as a people when we are united, and this should be a healing point for our country. There is no compromise on our sovereignty. We are together on this." And it is with the same spirit that I think we should be together on the development and future of our country. End of quote. And thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Clerk.
Personal explanations. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance.
Honorable members, I did receive electronically last evening and formally early this morning a request by the Honorable Member Mr. Ganesh Mahipod asking for a matter of urgent public importance be placed on the agenda, and that matter referred to the commencement of meetings of standing committees. Honorable members, while this is important, I did not see it as urgent. I wish to also, so I'm disallowing this request. I also wish to add that the convening of the first meetings of standing committees primarily deal with the election of chairpersons for these meetings. And as a second wave of COVID has been grappling the world, and we ourselves have been dealing with an alarming number of cases and not knowing how long this will last, I'd ask the clerk to put mechanisms in place so that members who are on committees and who would have to participate in these meetings, regardless of where they are, to ensure that we have systems and mechanisms in place to accommodate members of committees so that they can participate when these committees are going to meet. In this regard, 6 members of committees were identified in remote areas of the country not served by regular internet. And so while the first meetings of the committees are important, and every standing committee in this National Assembly has equal importance, while the first meeting to elect a chairman or chairperson is important, every meeting also is important. And so we have to ensure that persons can participate in the meetings. We look and see what services could be provided to members, like members who are in Purima and the Northwest and Shulinab. And I want to say that as we convene this 14th sitting of the National Assembly, a contract has been signed with the provider, and several of these members will be able to participate directly from their homes because the people of Guyana will be providing them with internet access. So if it happens that a community is locked down and a member is in that community, they will be able to fully participate in these meetings. And while We have seen a lot of statements about the convening of these meetings and all, and the imputing of motives. The National Assembly has taken steps to ensure that our members can participate and represent their constituents at every meeting possible. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by Minister. Introduction of bills.
The Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present to this August Assembly the Law Reform Commission Amendment Bill number 20, Bill 2020, Bill number 11 of 2020, a bill intituled An Act to Amend the Law Reform Commission Act, and I move that the bill be read for the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Law Reform Commission Amendment Bill 2020, Bill number 11 of 2020.
The Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
May it please you, sir, I present to the Assembly the Deceased Persons Estate Administration Amendment Bill 2020, Bill number 12 of 2020, a bill intituled An Act to Amend the Deceased Persons Estates Administration Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Deceased Persons Estates Administration Amendment Bill 2020, Bill number 12 of 2020.
The Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, sir. I present to the Assembly Small Business Amendment Bill 2020, Bill number 13 of 2020, a bill intituled An Act to Amend the Small Business Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Small Business Amendment Bill 2020, Bill number 13 of 2020.
The Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Thank you very much, sir. I rise to present to the Assembly Hire Purchase Bill 2020, Bill number 14 of 2020, a bill intituled An Act to Make Provision for the Regulation of Hire Purchase, Credit Sale and Conditional Sale Agreements, and for related purpose, and I move that the bill be read for the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Hire Purchase Bill 2020, Bill number 14 of 2020.
The Honorable Minister of Human Services and Social Security.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to present to the Assembly the adoption of Children Amendment Bill 2020, Bill number 15 of 2020, a bill intituled An Act to Amend the Adoption of Children Act, and I move that the bill be read the first time.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Adoption of Children Amendment Bill 2020, Bill number 15 of 2020, Public Business, Governance Business.
Honorable members, I think this would be an opportune time to take the suspension, but before we take the suspension, I just want to add, first, the meetings to elect the chairpersons of committee are scheduled for the 28th of December, starting at 2 p.m., when the committee of selection will meet. The notices were supposed to have been circulated, and I'm sure before we end today's sitting, they are physically going to be in your possession. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Mrs. Nadir in the National Assembly, who has joined me for lunch. Mrs. Nadir.